Okay, actually useful beginner tips for Tekken. A lot of tech channels and content I see is actually pretty useless, so I'm going to tell you some stuff that you need to learn and you need to do if you want to play this game. The first thing you need to do is you need to start playing on both sides. A lot of you are going to pick one side and you're going to feel like, you know what, I'm good on this side, I can backdash on this side, I can't do it on the other side, so I'm going to play on whichever side I'm strongest. This is a big mistake. You want to be able to play on both sides, you want to practice on both sides, you want to swap to both sides. If you're playing ranked, you can go into quick select. Even if you're in ranked, you can go to quick select, you can swap the side very easily between matches. So this is something you should do regularly. You should have a good, healthy 50-50 balance for both sides, because honestly, Tekken, for some reason, and I actually have an idea about why it's the case, but in Tekken, when you swap sides, all your limbs are mirrored, right? Up and down is also mirrored, so right and left. So this is right on that side, and down is right on this side. So they get mirrored, your limbs get mirrored. So this is left punch, this is left punch. Everything gets mirrored, and that causes a lot of mental confusion. You don't want to be the kind of guy who just plays on one side for 2 years until Tekken 9 comes out, like me. I played on one side for pretty much the entirety of Tekken 7, and at the end, towards after like a year, I really couldn't even play on the right side. I was significantly a worse player on the right side. And because, I felt I had some kind of pride and ego at my current skill level, I couldn't really bring myself to play the amount of matches I needed to on the right side to develop the skills that at least were the same on the left. So it feels really bad when you're in that state. It feels like you wasted your time. It feels like you've been cheated out of your own potential. I highly recommend that you learn to swap sides pretty regularly. That's my first tip. My second tip is that a lot of stuff is very confusing, and you're not really sure what, like if people are doing things to you, you just don't know. Like, I don't know law, to be honest, but he's just mashing shit. You might feel like you're in this situation where you don't know what's going on, and there's no real answer for any of this. You need to understand, like for example, if Law does this move, I need to know it's minus 13, right? I can't actually punish that. Oops. Nah, Nina can't punish that, that's ridiculous. That's the only thing she can do, but it's minus 4, so it's not worth it. There's nothing she can do about it. Huh. Right, so that's interesting. I did not know that. I didn't know that this is launch punishable. You need to do all this work, right? Now, some of you are going to be like, alright, fine. I need to do the work. But some of you are going to be like, I don't really want to do that. What can I do instead that's just going to help me no matter what? The reality is there's nothing. But if you had to choose something, it's probably this. Down jab. Down jab is pretty good. It beats a lot of stuff. It high crushes. Unless people specifically frame trap you for it, you can kind of get away with it a lot. But if you just really don't know and you don't want to learn, this is your ticket out of pressure. Down jabs. Alright. The second thing that you can do when you're scared and you don't know what's going on is just try and move somewhere. Right? Try and move laterally. Things will hit you still. But you can just evade. Especially if you can learn to sidestep and block. Sidestep and block. Sidestep and block. This is a very effective way to escape a lot of pressure. And even if you don't get the sidestep homing, I should have blocked that. If I had been a bit better. That's the whole point. See, I'm sidestepping, but I'm blocking. So that's my number one tip. If you don't know what to do, do this. If you don't know what to do, do this. My third tip for beginner players is to actually learn some good mix-ups. A lot of you guys are not doing mix-ups. a lot of you guys are like, you know, it's like you do a move, he does a move, you do a move, he does a move, you do a move, he does a move, and then you try and cheat people out with like a haha, you didn't see that coming type of thing. That's not really how we play this game. It is a bit, we are a little bit disrespectful to one another, but the reality is that what we really do is we do mix-ups, right? So I'm either going to go low, I'm going to go mid. Now certain characters are more complicated than others. For example, Nina is quite complicated in the sense that she doesn't have good high-low mix-ups, right? Mid-low mix-ups, right? Mid, low, mid, low. Now that's counter hit, so usually she doesn't get that. What she actually does is she mixes you up where her turn, like I've got this, there's a gap there, and then I've got a counter hit in case you try and like stop me. So that's what this character does, why she's a bit complicated. Characters like Law are a little bit more simple because they've got nice good mid, and then they've got good lows and stuff like that, right? You know, they've got good lows. He's not got great lows, but he's got hard to see lows. He's got plus lows, and he's got slides, right? So generally, if you're playing a character, I really want you to think about how you can make people guess, and not just like throw moves on people, right? It's not the answer. Trying to counter hit them, it's not the answer. Alright, so my fourth tip for new players who are just starting out the game is to learn to control space. I think it's kind of easily understood by most people that it's better to hit them over here than it is to try and hit them here with certain moves. But generally what I see is people don't actually play good neutral. And how you play good neutral is that when you're in this situation, people want to come in or they want to stay away, and you need to kind of determine which it is, and you can make it one or the other depending on what you do. So for example, if I'm playing against this guy and he decides to do this a whole bunch, then I'm gonna assume this guy doesn't want me to come in, and I'm gonna look to try and like punish him. So a lot of people will tell you about block punishes and stuff like that. Not many people will tell you about neutral punishes, which is, you know, someone wants to come in and someone wants to stay away, right? So generally the way you do it is you look for a move. The wrong thing to do is this. You see him whiff, and then you go and try and run up to him, and you know, you go and try and do a low or something like that. You'll get launched. So if you think he's trying to keep you away, you need to try and like, no, that's too slow. You need to recognize what it is you're looking for and punish him. Don't try and punish everything, because you won't actually get it, right? For example, if I do this, out of nowhere, I'm not going to respond to that. I'm not going to respond to the jab either, because it's too hard. But once I see the down forward one, if I see another one, I'll get it. Does that make sense? I'm looking for a move in particular. I'm not really looking for anything, because if I just look for anything, it'll either be just me throwing it, just hoping, like that, or I'll be too slow. See, that was too slow. He could have blocked that. So you really want something specific. That's the reality. I dropped it. So that's the reality. The next thing is that you can do the same thing to him. So whatever character you're playing, they probably have moves that stop you from like getting in, and you should employ those to create a sort of wall around yourself that's going to force the opponent to kind of play around you, and not just coming in, running away, coming in, running away. Like it's just not just chaos. So you can do that. Certain characters are better than this than others, and certain characters have special moves that they use. Like if I were to switch to, for example, Brian, he's one of the best characters for this, or maybe a character like Jin. So if I switch here to Feng is really good at this as well. Lee is especially good at this. Lee just does this all the time. It really depends on what character you play. Certain characters are designed for this, and certain characters like excel at this, and certain characters don't. For example, Nina is bad at this. She has a few things she can do, but they're not really great. Where's Brian? There he is.
Get ready for the next battle.
So if I'm playing Jin, I can choose to hop kick, yeah, but it's not good on recovery, right? So he has a really nice move called forward fall. If people want to come to him, they gotta go through that move first, right? So you need to learn the move that's gonna stop people from just getting into you, whatever character you're playing. He also has electrics. He can just whiff that because it's hard to punish. If you just do this non-stop, over and over again, like repeatedly, people will adapt to you. So you really don't want to be too predictable in a fighting game. But it's a tool you can use when you feel like, oh, I've got space, he might want to come to me. Nah, stay away. Brian can do the same thing. I was hoping I could just do it from the comment. So Brian can do the same thing with 3+4, right? This is neutral, by the way. This is what neutral is in this game. See that? If I wanna come in and do stuff, I'll just lose. So what I wanna do is I wanna wait for it and punish it. Now I can also sidestep. See? Some moves are weak to certain sides, and you got to be ready to punish. Sidestepping is timing dependent. So if you're getting hit, it's because you don't understand the opponent's timing. That's why. It's a good idea to practice that. What do you do if your opponent is going to do the same thing to you? If they're going to wait around, if they're waiting for you, they're just like doing this, waiting. You know that they want to like launch you for something, right? So a lot of the time that means that you get to, you know, go in and do some nice mix-ups. Yeah. Make them guess. That's the wrong move. Is it low? Is it going to be low? Or is it going to be mid? Okay. And my final tip for new players who want to learn this game and want to get involved in the game is the jab. Jab is a very strong move. It's very underrated. Beginners don't use jabs at all. Intermediate players very rarely use jabs. Intermediate players are always trying to use like their character's main tools, because like they learn what I just told you, and then that's all they do. But a jab is a critical tool, especially at high level. For example, this is something that could happen at high level. I blocked it, and then I tried to go in, but the jab stopped me. You see? I blocked it, and then I have to block a jab. You see? So it can be really useful to just put this 10 frame, oops, sorry, not that. 10 frame move that's +1 on block and +8 on hit. It's really good. If you can utilize this jab, you can be a really good Tekken player. The last thing I would teach you actually is maybe don't mash so much. I noticed playing against lower players, like, this is such a common thing. Like, for example, players will get hit by this low and think, I don't like it, I'm gonna press buttons. Which is fine, you're supposed to do that. I don't know if that's real, but we'll see. It's perfectly fine, but watch what happens if you do. That's uninterruptible, right? It's uninterruptible. So you can get frame trapped if you're just mashing, right? And I've seen some players, they recognize that the frame trap is happening because they keep getting hit by it, but they still don't know what to do. So a general rule of thumb, it's general, it's not true for every situation, but a general rule of thumb is that if there's a frame trap, you can step to avoid the frame trap. See? General rule of thumb. But here's my point, right? What if Brian does this to you, right? See, this is what happens when you know a little bit about frame data. It's like, oh, well, oh god, I'm minus, oh god, I lost half my HP because I respected a situation that wasn't real. It could have been real, but the Brian decided to take extended turns, right? He's extended his frame advantage. It's not, none of that was fake. Watch, I can do whatever I want. I can do whatever I want. See you later. I can do whatever I want to him. Because he's not actually taking his advantage. He's attacking me knowing that I'm going to, and yes, you can step this to the left. You can, yes. Yes, you can. And on this side the left changes, right? So you can step that way. But what you can do is if you think he's gonna do something that isn't like a tight frame trap, if you think he's gonna do something like low into low, you can call it out, right? And I feel like a lot of players, especially at intermediate, what they do is they panic. They do that, right? They panic, like, oh god, no, I don't like the pressure. But the reality is, if you're gonna get pressured and you're gonna call out the fact that it's fake, call it out with some big damage. Don't call it out with these little panic jabs that do nothing. Call it out with 60 to 80 damage. That's what you do, right? Now you're playing the game. Because now the Brian has to frame trap you. Now the Brian has to frame trap you, right? He has to do this. Or he has to block, right? He has to lose his frame advantage. And then you sidestep, right? I fucked up. I fucked it up again. You see what I mean? So, once you can start to manipulate situations like that, then you're playing the game. Until that point, you're not really playing the game. You're just sort of doing whatever you think is good in any given moment, and you don't really have a clue. You need to understand all of these little situations that Tekken players are going to create. Until you understand those, until you understand like what to do, see what I mean? And it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy at all. But at least if you have some idea about what you're trying to do, you can start to play. The problem is that this game is very intermediate unfriendly. It's friendly to beginners because it's fine to mash and it's fine to do all this stuff, and you're gonna get hits randomly sometimes and it's gonna feel good, and because you're so clueless, you're gonna do things that randomly work like that for no reason, and it's just gonna avoid a high. It's just gonna avoid something the opponent is trying to do. You're just gonna get lucky. But once you start to think, you're like, okay, is he gonna go low? Oh no. Oh, should I have stepped that? Oh, I'm gonna go this way. Oh, I missed it. Oh no. Once you start to try and play the game, you're gonna have like this problem where you just sort of freeze. It's like, oh, he's plus, what do I do? It's actually really hard to step back. It's better to step to the left, huh? It's better to step to the left on Brian. Oops, that was supposed to be Ken. And it's a good idea to try and lab. So my last tip for you players is when you play matches, if you actually want to learn the game, you actually want to get good at the game, if you're just here to have some fun and just to mash out and play Victor or whatever kind of scrubby crap you want to do, go ahead and do whatever you want. But if you're here to play the game properly and try and learn it, I would highly recommend that when you lose your matches, go into a replay and just learn one or two things. It's pretty easy to go into a replay. It's pretty convenient as well. You can just go into any replay, you go into my replays and tips. I don't know what the tips part is, but you can just pick any match that you were in, and you can be like, you know, I didn't do this right, I didn't do that right, and you can find a situation where, you know, you just click on play replay, you know,
Get ready for the next battle.
the left right thing is just gonna the tips are gonna show for whichever player you chose, right? So the tips are gonna show for the Leo here, they're not gonna show for me. It's irrelevant for me, I don't need to know that. I'm going to be able to make decisions on my own anyway. But you might want to choose your character. So then you find what you want to find, and then what you can do is you can see in the bottom it says P1, P2 controls, and I can choose to select the right character, and now I can play. So that's a natural launch. I can see that that's -9. So I can decide, okay, it's -9. So -9 in this game basically means it's your turn. There's not really much he can do. He can step sometimes, but a lot of the time he'll get hit. So you can just go through different scenarios where you feel like you did something wrong. Like for example, this low, you can react to this. You know what I mean? And you can just practice, yeah. So I didn't punish that very well. See? I really just need to... Sorry. And you can just lab like that. That way you can find out what kind of situations you're in all the time. So if, for example, it's a good situation. This is a move that Leo does a lot. Let me just actually do this. That's a move that Leo does a lot, right? So this Leo decides to follow it up with this move. You can check his inputs as well. It looks like back 3-1. Okay, back 3-1. So here's the situation. For example, this is something that Leo does, but this is something that this player does. So that's something that this player does, but this is something the character does. You can learn to beat what the character does, and then you have to learn to beat players, right? So unfortunately in this game, you actually do need to beat what characters do, otherwise you're in trouble. So I can walk this if I block it, but what if I get hit? I can't. I've already tried. I've already labbed this. I can't walk. So I have to respect. If I get hit, I have to respect. But there's a big gap there, right? Now he can frame trap me for trying to disrespect it, but I know there's a big gap. So if I feel like I want to press buttons, I can, right? So it's my personal advice to you, if you are serious about this game, to really make heavy use of this feature, to actually learn the matchups, actually learn the situations you're being put in, and learn to have responses. And by understanding what to do and what you can do, you can get through the intermediate stage a bit quicker, because that is the most painful stage in this game, where you have ideas and you have some knowledge, but you're not sure exactly what to do, and you're not, and you're sort of overwhelmed because you're thinking and your fingers, they're not in sync yet. That's really a painful stage, because you lose to everybody. You lose to beginners and you lose to advanced players. Whereas beginners are having a great time. Beginners are mashing, they're winning games, things are going their way, they don't know why, but they're winning. Advanced players they're putting the work and they're actually winning because they know exactly how to win. But intermediate players really struggle in this game. So those are my tips.